Hello, friends.
Hello, heathens. We are talking about the original heathens today, where they all come from.
Kind of in the middle.
Teenagers.
Teenagers.
Teen. Um, this is something that's been brewing inside of me for a while now because I do have a teenager. She's turned 16 this year. She's amazing and I love her a lot. And we talk about her a lot. Um, there was this awareness that started, and I realized that how we talk to kids and teenagers, um, and this is just a generalization, it's not putting everybody in a box, um, where we talk to teenagers uh, very rudely, actually. Like you would never talk to an adult or coworker the way you talk to your teen or preteen.
Yeah, it's like with this toxic authority.
Very much so, because you're trying to assert your dominance and control over this being that is starting to feel themselves and
It's really
express
toxic.
themselves. It is. The other underlying thing that's happening is that you're being reflected back all of your things that you don't like about yourself. And that's one of the things we really got to be aware of when we are facing opposition on our child that we're trying to control or have power over because we think we know best because they're younger, right?
Yeah, and or your inner teenager that nobody talks about healing because it's not just your inner child, your inner
Mm,
teenager too, which is because of your inner child.
right, right. Like you think there's so much stuff that happened to us as teenagers that really that is a normal thing. It's not like it's abuse. It's like it's a normal cultural thing. Um, and it's weird because in one aspect, you talk to a teenager and you're like, well, you can't do that because you're too young for that. Especially here in the States, like we can't drink until we're 21, right? So, but we all know that, like, I know I drank before I was 21. Pretty sure you drank before you're 21. Like, I'm pretty sure that's a common rite of passage, if you will. And then on the flip side of the coin, we're like, oh, why are you still doing that? You're too old to be doing it. You should know better. And then along the line, we can riddle into like, you're so like, why would you do that? That's so dumb, or you're stupid, or, you're being difficult. Um, these are things that we start to really, because they are growing up, they are feeling themselves, they are like giving the strength from, figuring out who they are. And opposition is part of that definement of boundaries and stuff like that. And when you over bulldoze over those boundaries just because what I've kind of figured out is that you're only bulldozing those boundaries because A, we're trying to please somebody else. B, my kid's a reflection of how I parent. And if my kid is not kidding right, then I'm a bad parent and people will judge me, the peers, the moms, the school. And these are things that we really have to go back to the basics and realize that like these teenagers are saying stuff and they need to be heard and respected. Now, granted, like I'm not going to sit here and be like, if she's got to go to my mom's house and she doesn't want to go to my mom's house, then you know, we kind of have to well, we should go, right? Like it depends on how this is a level thing and you got to feel it out. Like, why? Is she being overstimulated? Does she need a break? Or is she just kind of being a little bratty? Right. So these are things, and that's why it's a very gray kind of water, and I know that's why it gets complicated when we're teenagers. It's like you really have to like, okay, well, sit back and ask why. Why are you not wanting to do this? Um why is it so important for me for you to do this too? You know,
Yeah.
it's a raising kids is not for the faint of heart,
No.
you know? Because, and you've heard me say this multiple times is like, and I tell every new parent this is like, you're going to fuck them up. That's just the way the world is, right? You could read every book and do everything what you think is quote unquote right, but like, there's always going to be something that traumatizes them that they'll carry into adulthood because that's just the way it is.
Well, and
Like,
I think that an important thing to add to that, though, is it's not all on the parent. I feel like most of the times the parents
mhm,
think it's all on them, but they're living their own lives too. And I think that a lot of parents don't realize that they have their own lives, they have their own emotions, they are their own person, and not everything that you've done is or everything they're doing is your influence. Because they don't
right.
only learn from you. You're not the only adult in their lives. You're not the only person around them. They have other
Mhm.
teenagers around them. They have other adults around them. So not everything is on the parent. And I think the parents take everything as their own and reflect it on themselves and take everything very personally,
Absolutely.
which is
And
something that I wanted to talk about today too.
that was the thing, or that's definitely like a thing. It's an ego thing. It's a weird ego thing, but it's almost like a cultural thing as well. Like you think everybody's looking at you, and like I remember when we were going to color Trinity's hair for the first time, and she was in kindergarten, right? And like there was this big thing about like whether we should bleach her hair or not. And now it seems so silly to like talk about this, but that was a real issue of like,
Mhm.
are we bad parents because we do this? B, or like when she started wearing makeup, because there's a whole controversy about, women in makeup, right? But she comes from a very artistic household. I do hair and makeup for a living. I have a very personal relationship with makeup, as do you. And
Mhm.
she is influenced by you a lot. And that's just a normal, like for us, that's just a normal thing. We're not trying to cover anything up.
Right.
We're expressing ourselves.
Right.
And that's what we're doing.
Mhm. Really quick, I did want to set some intentions for today so everybody could be kind of clear of why we're talking about this subject too. And I'd say the intentions for today are going to be to talk about the pressures and changes that teenagers go through and to remind adults how to care and navigate through it.
Mhm.
Also, to remind adults that we all have an inner teenager within us that also needs healing. And to
Mhm.
give teenagers some advice on how what they can do, things they can do to feel empowered and to create
Mhm.
a feeling of not being alone for teenagers today. Because I think that for both teenagers and adults that are listening to this isn't to harp on adults and this isn't to
Mm-mm.
harp on teenagers. This is just to make us all aware of the fact that we've all been there. And I think it's also to remind adults that we've been there. And we might
Yes.
not have been in the same positions as other teenagers, but we all went through puberty. We all went through the big change that happens, and you have no fucking
Mhm.
idea what's happening. And especially for those of
Yeah.
us that are like my age and up or around my age and up, we didn't get this change that's happening now. And the change that's happening now, I think a lot of people are unaware of as well, where like we didn't have social media. We didn't have all these like fast paced, like plugged in society feelings and things that are going on and these expectations and these tones for the messages that are coming through today to the teenagers now. We didn't have that. Like
Mhm.
phones when I was a kid, I had a flip phone when I was 16. I wasn't allowed to have one before then. And then I got one of those little ones that like slides up with the keyboard underneath. because like we were poor and I wasn't able to have like the BlackBerry and the this and the that, which was cool.
Oh
But
God,
it's
the
like
BlackBerry.
I remember when I got my actual first smartphone and it was crazy. And then now Instagram became a thing. 'Cause back then we only had MySpace.
Oh my God, MySpace.
Yeah. So it's like you got to think we didn't grow up in the time that they're growing up. We're adults in it, and we have more experience being brought up through it and into it. They're being
Mm-hmm.
thrown into it. That's like
Mm-hmm.
throwing kids the wolves, man. Like there's a lot of things that I think we should talk about to help kids also feel seen, and like teens and young adults feel seen too, because that like perpetually like plugged in society is a hard one because it's even more pressure than
Mm-hmm.
what we experience. But I also want to like make them feel seen and make adults remind us that we were there at one point in time. It's just a different period, you know?
Absolutely. But you gotta also, I want to put this in there with that, is that when you're a child, okay, if you think of a child like a plant, and a plant that's growing into, like, say, the side of the house, it grows into it. It doesn't know that the house is bad for it or anything like that. It just, and it doesn't necessarily, it grows with it. It grows into it. Like, so with kids growing up at this time, they're going to have a better way of navigating these streets because they are getting it as they're growing with it. Like they're being, I don't want it to sound bad, but they're being molded by these waters, these streets, if you will. So they're going to be better at navigating it than us. Like they're made different. They're made, we were made different, you were made different. Like,
Mhm.
things about your streets that I don't know because I was, older than you. I'm older than you are, right? So like, and I know different streets, different streets, like, and that's how that
And
goes,
Trinity
right?
knows different streets.
Absolutely, right? Like we talk to her all the time and she tells us stuff and we're like, wow, I've never thought about it that way.
Yeah, it's a really remarkable thing to have a teenager in your life.
Absolutely. God, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool. I enjoy it a lot. I even
Mm-hmm.
texted her today to ask her if I could talk about some of the things that I wanted to talk about that her and I have talked about. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "Thank you so much for asking me." And like, "Yeah, of course." And it was cool because I was there's a few topics that Trinity and I talk about that are pretty controversial for some people that they don't
Yeah.
think teenagers should be talking about, and I absolutely disagree.
I absolutely disagree as well.
Yeah. Oh man.
I do want to, okay, so before we go into like teenager, I mean, we're whatever. So, I want to go back to elementary just for a second and how kids are little, and I'm going to show the transition between elementary to middle school that I had saw while we were living it. So, when you're a kindergarten, and maybe your experience was different, so I'd like to see what you think about this as well. When you're uh an elementary student, like pre-K, kindergarten, first grade, this like very young, very cute stage of kids' lives, right? You could basically shit on the floor and people would be like, "Oh, it's okay. That's okay. You're okay. It's okay. That happens. It's fine," right? As soon as you go into junior high, all bets are fucking off. Everybody hates everybody. It's a horrible, like their bodies are changing, hormones are happening. Nobody's explaining what they're talking about because heaven forbid we talk about change in our bodies because we sexualize everything. Um, it's such a different feel that like it's going from all accepting, very supportive to what the fuck do you want? There's this like with Trinity School, and this is why we kind of got her out of the school, was that I felt like it wasn't if she got in a fight, it was when. But nobody was addressing these like needs that these kids needed. they weren't getting their needs met at home for whatever reason, like mom works too much, dad's not there, single parent homes, like, maybe they have mental illness that's not being dealt with at home with a parent, with another sibling. Maybe they weren't being fed, maybe they weren't being clothed, maybe they weren't being taken care of. All of these like things. And so when they get to school, uh, it was like they were acting out because nobody was hearing them. Nobody was meeting their needs. And I feel like with teenagers, they don't come out and say, "Hey, I didn't get fed today. So I'm a little cranky because my sugar's low and my hormones are up and my mom didn't hug me today." Like all this stuff. And they act out, but we're not questioning why they're acting out. We're telling them they're bad and we're really into punishing them and controlling them on how their behaviors are, right? Instead of trying to find the root cause. I get that that's very overwhelming too, but I really think we need to address this and look at it and find a solution or at least try to follow that path to something, some sort of enlightenment.
Well, and to add what you were just saying, to give another thing that I have noticed being a third party view all the time outside of being a teenager alone, but third party view, I think a lot of why kids, teenagers, young adults, teens, they don't come out and just say it is because they don't have trust. They don't
Right.
feel that unconditional love. And now I know that can be very triggering. Um, but I've gotten to see it and feel it. I know what that's like.
Yeah.
I know I've literally been able to be on the outside of the personal feelings involved in it to where I can see it. And it is this thing, this lack of trust that if I tell this person that I'm upset because I didn't get food today, are they going to berate me? Is my parent going to berate me? Is my parent going to blame me for not eating? Is my parent going to do anything
Yeah.
other than say, well, can I get you food? Let's go eat. What do you want to do?
Absolutely.
Is my parent going to be like, if I say that you didn't hug me at all today and I don't feel loved, is my parent going to be like, well, let's hug. I do love you. I
Right.
love you very much. Or are they going to be like,
Triggered.
what the hell? You're so sensitive or this or that. Like this whole
Mhm.
idea of like not taking things personally with kids is very hard. With young people is
Oh,
very, very
yeah.
hard, especially when you are the parent.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely.
It's hard, man.
Mhm.
And I get it. And like when it comes to interpersonal work, when you're looking at your inner teenager is created to protect your inner child. That's why a lot of this moodiness, this anger, this bitterness, this like these mood swings come out is because they're trying to navigate how to not be like their inner child anymore. How do I
Mhm.
protect that person? How do I protect that kid in me? How do I like change the things that happened to me as a kid, whether it was the parents' fault or not? I
Right.
think one of the biggest things for me that I also wanted to say, um, to all of everybody, including all of us, whatever age range you're at, Nicole really helped me with this a lot in my own personal healing journey. And it is like these words hit me every time I think about them. Your parent did the best they could with what they had.
Mhm.
And that might trigger you at first because it did for me. Because I was like, that's bullshit. Then they shouldn't have had kids. But
Right?
honestly, when you let
Right.
it, right, when you let it sink in, you're like, damn, my parents did do the best with what they had. And some parents have less than others. They have less resources, they have less interpersonal knowledge, they have less like emotional knowledge. And it's unfortunate for them. But with what they
Absolutely.
had, they did the best that they could. Now, am I saying there aren't malicious people out there? Fuck yeah, obviously, we all know that.
Right, right. But even
But
then, this one, and that's a hard aspect because I've been trying to talk to my mom about this too, is that like even her mom did the best she could with what she had. Now, if you think about it, me being mean and kind of abusive, it's still a way of teaching you that the world is hard,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like my grandma was abandoned by both of her parents and split up with like her from her siblings and went into foster care, right? She only knows one of her brothers. Like that's it. Those abandonment issues, we also are coming out of this age of like where mental health has not been looked at all, right? So
No,
like that, and I am just on the brink, I'm 46, so I'm what is it, Generation X, I think.
I can
I
never
mean,
remember the one between boomers and millennials.
I'm in between Generation X and like an old millennial. Like there's a small, I don't know, whatever. You can look it up.
Yeah.
Um, but so we are now like Generation X, where I feel like my generation is really starting to look at themselves and fix this and not have those curses go down to our children. And then but before that, they don't have any tools. They don't have any like it was, this is where we beat our kids into submission, right? And I'm not
Heck
saying that
yes.
I'm not saying that I'm not blaming, right? That was a normal thing to do,
Right.
right? Not blaming at all, because that was like how you raise kids.
Yeah.
And then like I feel like we went the total opposite way with like kids that I know that we talked about, like and maybe millennials, where like a lot of them got trophies for everything, or you had these parents that like made sure everything was nice for them. So then we went the opposite way with that swing, that pendulum, right? And again, not blaming. It's just an observation of what we are dealing with, right?
Right.
Because this is going to go forward into these when they start raising kids their own. Eventually, I guess the pendulum will kind of swing less, is what I'm hoping for.
Right. Because we've had two extreme swings, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
trying to bring it down to where it will stop swinging. We can try to hit balance. And if it
Balance.
is a swing, it's slight, it's not a huge swing.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like it was one of the two, right? For millennials too, was either you got the parents that were super strict and you got punished all the time and nothing you did was good enough, or everything you did was beautiful and perfect and you got a star for pooping your pants or peeing on the floor. Like,
Right. Right. It didn't matter. You just, well, yes, you're doing
yes,
great.
great job, kid. And so now I feel like parents are really trying to navigate the new way of doing things. And it's really fucking hard, dude. I'm gonna be really honest with you
It's
guys.
totally hard.
I have chosen not to be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
My partner does have a kid and she's amazing. And I am in her life and am making plans and moves to be in her life more. So I will have a bit different experience having kids. But having my own kids, I have chose not to. And this is partly
Mm-hmm.
why, is because there was a lot of trauma that I went through as a kid and I didn't want to pass it down because I still am working on that. And like
Mm-hmm.
watching all my parents around me going through this actively figuring this out, it's really cool to be third party too because I get to see things, like I said, in a different light where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and then woo, and then woo, where it's like this, like, again, a pendulum swing. And it's hard to be in the middle of that, especially with teenagers, because they're constantly straddling the line between childhood and adulthood, because one minute you're like, damn, you're a grown ass adult, dude. You just gave me the
Yeah.
best fucking advice of my life. You handled that like a grown ass, boss ass woman. And then the
Yep.
next minute, they're crying and they want to snuggle up with their mom and watch Disney
Mm-hmm.
movies all day. And I think that for some people still in these really heavy pendulum swings where they're on one side or the other, it's really hard to navigate because they don't know how to like play both sides of that, where it's like celebrating them for both. You
Right.
know, you want to be a kid still, honey. You still are a kid. You don't have to make all these adult decisions. But if you want to make adult decision, let's
Right.
talk about it. Let's navigate it. I can help you and uplift you and give
Mm-hmm.
you the things you need to be able to do this, or just help you decide what you want to do and talk about it with you.
Absolutely. Like, and that's the thing, is just talk and take time to listen. I mean, the other day I was like, do you want me to listen to you or do you want me to give you advice? Like, I had to ask that question, because I couldn't, I, of course, wanted to give her advice. because
Right.
that's what I do, right?
Well, you're
And
also her mom.
and I'm her mom, so I'm like, oh, she's the number one person I want to give advice to. And I want to be that for her, right? You want to be that for your kid, right? You want to. But I was like, wait, that's my ego. Like, I have to step back and be like, what would you like me to do at this moment that would best help you and serve you in your life? And I had asked questions. And she told me, she's like, just listen. And I was like, which was still hard to like even take that.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. But then I was like, at least she's talking to me. There's so many parents that say that their teenagers aren't talking to them. And it's like, well, there was one thing that like came up to me too about not talking to your teenager. Are you going up to your teenager and because I found myself doing this. Like, I'm trying to make her a better person, right? So I'm nitpicking everything. Like, you should clean your room and you should eat better and you should like get off your phone. There's too much screen time. And she's like, you are criticizing me all the time. And I had to step back and go, I'm really sorry. That's how I thought being a good mom was. And I had to like, and furthermore, I told her, I go, you also know who I am, right? I had to remind her that I am not this overly critical person. I'm doing it for love. You know, I love you. You know, and let me tell you if you don't remember, like, but you know who I am. You know how I act around people. Why would you think that I was doing this out of malicious, you know, against you, right?
Yeah.
So, and that was a good reminder for me as well that I do love her and that I do want the best for her. And sometimes what I think is the best for her may not be the best for
You just brought up three things I'm like thinking
her.
of. Um, I think that what goes along with that really too is talking at somebody versus talking
hmm
with them. I think we
hmm
do this to kids a lot because what I want to go into that is okay, to my teenagers. You guys got to understand what's happening for your parents too, okay? Your parents raised you. Okay, there was a point in time where you couldn't eat on your own. You would have
Mm-mm.
to sit in a poopy diaper. Like, you got to realize they raised you into that to teaching you how to talk, to teaching you how to eat your own food, to teaching you how to go to the bathroom. There's all these fundamental things to being a human and functioning as just down to the basics of human that they had to teach you. And they go from that to helping you still. You hurt, you get a boo-boo, your mommy takes care of it, your daddy takes care of it, right? Like it's
hmm
this hard shift for parents too. They are also straddling instead where you're straddling childhood versus adulthood, right? They're
hmm
straddling control versus help, and they're
hmm
like having to figure out like what's too much, where am I really down to the point controlling them still, or trying to like push this control onto them and say that you have
hmm
to do this because it's out of fears that they have, that they've experienced, where they don't want you to fail like they did. So it's a
Right.
fear they have, so they're going to push you
Right.
to do things because it's a fear that they have. And then they're also struggling to be like, well, how do I not do that? And how do I just offer help and support? It's a constant struggle for both parties involved. So it's like,
hmm
I feel like once both sides of the coin, the parent and the child, understand that better, it's going to create a better atmosphere. And then the third thing that you made me think of, which I feel like you and Trinity are getting into, is this experience that I don't know what it is yet. And I should have looked it up, but I didn't think about it until just now. I didn't realize like
Yeah.
that you and Trinity went through this. So my grandparents got custody of me when I was 16, and I had been through a lot, and I had grown up really fast. By 15, I was working a job, and like I wasn't going to school, and they got me back into school. And I had gone through this quick get into adulthood kind of thing. So coming back in with my grandparents, it was really hard because I was different. My maturity level was different. The way I handled things was different. I my inner child was kind of stifled in a way. I didn't know how to
Mhm.
have fun anymore. I didn't know how to
Your
just
trust, yeah, trust issues as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so my grandparents and I went through this whole shift where it's like I got to let that back in. I trusted them again. It was like this whole thing, right? But what that led us into in the future, once we got through all of that, is my grandparents are my best friends.
Mhm.
They're not this vision of authority in my life where I have to call them for every little thing. I have to rely on them for this or rely on them for that. It's like more of a respect that we have for each other. We
Mhm.
respect each other's lives and we care about each other's lives. They're my best friends. And it's this
Mhm.
shift from mommy, daddy to seeing your mom and dad as their own person or seeing your child as your own person, their own person with
Mhm.
their own life to live. And you can't make it or create it for them. That's
Right.
their whole purpose of why they're here, and, like, I feel like that shift's not talked about a lot, and it's hard for
Mm-mm.
some people who are actively in the "that's my mommy, that's my daddy" stage still to
Right,
be
'cause
able to
they're
realize that.
they're almost godlike at some point,
Yeah.
right? You know, they know everything. You've gotten all of your nurturing or your food or whatever, you've gotten all of it from them. Whether they take it away, whether they all of it was through them. They're your sunshine, really.
Mhm.
And then, um, at some point, I do remember that shift of being like, they're just people.
Dude, they have their own wants and needs.
They have their own wounds. They have
Yeah.
their own, like, hang-ups. Like,
The biggest one
it's
is they have sex, and
Ugh.
that should not be weird.
I
Cause like,
know.
so do I.
Oh my god. It's true. I
Right?
remember. Can I tell you my oh, should I say this on I shouldn't say that. Maybe they'd be embarrassed. I just remember hearing my parents have sex and being like when I was a teenager.
Oh, yeah, cause like,
Mhm.
as a teenager, that is a gross concept. And as an adult, for some years, it can be until that shift kind of happens and you're like, whole, you see them as whole beings, as humans, and not
Yeah.
so much as this like pedestal type archetype in your life.
Well, I also feel like that's part of culture, our culture,
Yeah.
is that we're supposed to say that, right? Like, I'm not supposed to be comfortable with my parents having sex, right? Like, I'm supposed
Yeah.
to be like, I don't care. Good. Go get some.
But fuck yeah, dude. I,
Please.
my grandparents and I have had some. I've opened my grandfather's eyes, is what I'm trying to say, to quite a few things. It made him blush quite a few times, but I was like, "Grandpa, you need to know this stuff." He's like, "Why do I
Mhm.
need to know this?" And I'm like, "Well, if somebody ever brings up things, I almost said the things, but I realized there's no way of saying the things without actually saying it. But um, if people bring up things, you'll know what they're talking about."
Absolutely.
And I'm like, "I'm the one that's comfortable enough to do that for you."
Mhm.
We would just laughed about it, but he was curious at that point. It was cool to see like this old man that I adore and I do hold
Yeah.
very high up on my list of respected people who I love him so unconditionally. Be kind of childlike in a way where he was curious because it's something that he never has been had an open conversation about or had somebody that's not embarrassed to talk to him about it and made it
Mhm.
normal.
Oh, it's so cool. Because that's where, like, I've noticed, like, where I've entered the world at, I'm right in the middle, kind of, and it's so cool to talk to you, and it's so cool to talk to Trinity, because you keep me new and excited about all these new things, and I feel like I'm still part of the world where, like, um, the older you get, the more you feel like you get out of touch like that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, right? Like, because you just keep moving on and moving forward. But you're not picking up any of the, like, evolution parts of it, right?
Right. That's how I feel Trinity does for me. Cause like sometimes I'll
Mhm.
be like, Trinity, what does this word mean? Cause like
Yes.
I'm lost. I have no fucking idea what kids are saying sometimes. And then I feel like, damn, am I old? I'm only 29. No freaking way. It's just, it's so how fast culture is changing and how fast it does change. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
I was a teenager. Like what? 10, 11, 12 years ago?
Mhm.
I mean, in the grand scheme of time, that's not a long time, but in that decade or a little over, it's changed so drastically.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, think about like they say stuff right now that I like have to be like, what is that?
Oh my gosh, we took
Crispy?
Kaylee
No.
out.
What was that?
Oh,
What were they talking about? Jordan's car?
oh yeah, they were saying it was crispy.
Crispy. And I was like, crispy?
I
That's what
know. That's like we took Kaylee out to eat and we hung out with her a couple weekends ago. And she said yeet. She said that boy just got yeeted. And Jordan and I looked at each other and start busting out. And yeeting is like when you throw something really aggressively or somebody gets thrown and they say that it was yeeted. I know. It's a whole thing that's like big in this younger community, but it's really funny because his
oh,
7-year-old said that boy got yeeted, and Jordan and I were cracking up because he goes, "Where did you learn that from?" And I was like, "Kaylee, who taught you that?" Some boy at the school on the playground said she got yeeted
mhm.
or he got yeeted, and she learned it, and now she's using it. It's so funny.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
So, I love this life. I swear to God. This last week was hard, but like right now talking to you, this makes it all better, right? Like doing this
Same.
and uh
Same.
there I I love kids. I really do. I don't want to raise another one, right? Like that's fucking hard. But like to talk to them and to like see the world through their eyes. Like I've been looking at the same fucking tree for 46 years, and this kid comes over here and goes, "Oh, look at this." And you're like, "How did I miss that?
Right.
I've been staring at this thing." And they just
Trinity's
come over. They're like, "Look."
also Trinity's also an Aries.
Yes, that is true.
And her mother is a Capricorn and her adopted sister is a Libra. So it's really funny because she says things sometimes, you guys, in the most monotone, duh way,
Oh my God.
where it's like you're like, I mean, I'm not stupid, but like maybe I am. Because like you just how did you point that out? And you just were like, duh. And it's like, not duh, not duh,
Not duh.
not duh.
I'm learning too.
Yeah, duh for you, not duh for me, you little senpai. Something I wanted to talk about today that I asked Trinity if I could talk about is sex. Okay, you guys, this is
Mhm.
triggering and this is hard for parents, but I have a whole thing because, like,
Well, we need to get over it, is what I'm gonna say. And I know that's triggering, and I'm okay with it. We really need to get over it because we are doing a disservice for not only ourselves, but our children. And I feel the same way about death. And there's stuff that we're not discussing as a culture, as a parent, as children. We're not discussing it. And then we're like flaring around, like, oh, this is how we're supposed to do it. And I'm like, talk to your kids. Jesus Christ.
yeah, I was gonna say, don't get me wrong, like, I know, because again, yes, I don't have my own kids, but you guys gotta understand, like, I'm around parents all the time. Like,
Hmm.
I have one friend who's not a parent right now.
Hmm.
Two, actually, two.
Hmm.
And they're around kids even. They've been
Hmm.
partners to people who have kids. So it's like there's not many people in my life, especially clients, that don't have kids. And parenting a teenager is not for the faint of heart, correct? Like it can be
Oh,
hard
yeah.
as hell. It's
Yep.
hard to navigate where to give them space and then where to push them, right?
Right. Right.
Like, because you also want to be actively involved because you want to build trust. But at the same time, if you push too much, you could smother them.
Absolutely.
It's hard,
Or push them right away.
right? But, like,
Mhm.
when keeping in mind that take nothing personal with teenagers because you gotta remember, like, they're going through a ton of changes, right? And I think the biggest thing I wanna talk about is having open communication with kids and being honest is my first suggestion on where to start the healing and the navigation process with your teen.
Mhm.
And with that, I wanna say, because we all do this, especially as parents, because like, parents have a hard time opening up to teenagers too and being honest and being real about what they're feeling. I've watched Nicole go through this where she's like, "I've had to tell Trinity, like, I'm really sensitive today," or "I'm irritated
Mhm.
about this." And it's
Mhm.
hard to do because you're telling your kids something that you could feel like you're failing at.
Well, I'm being vulnerable.
Yes.
Shit, I remember being literally in a crisis moment, and I'm bitey, and I'm walking around all erratic, and she's like, "What is wrong with you?" And I was like, "I'm having a moment. You're just gonna have to let me do this. It just doesn't mean anything about you. I'm literally being triggered right now, and I have to just go through it. You're gonna have to give me space to do it."
Yeah. Don't speak to these kids in code, man.
Mm-mm.
Stop talking in this freaking ancient language where you're really not saying anything, but you're saying what you think they deserve. Be
Mhm.
open and be
Mhm.
honest with these kids. Don't ask them closed-ended questions.
Because they
Stop
already
doing that.
know. They already
Yes.
know.
You're validating them, you're making them feel like you're the superior and you have to have control. They are people too, and they are
Mhm.
soon to be adults, and you're not teaching them how to have open and honest communication. And I feel like the best example for this is sex. And this is what I asked
Yeah.
Trinity if I could talk about today because her and I have had a lot of very open, very honest conversations about
Mhm.
sex. And it has been really cool because I am somebody who is actively in her life, somebody who I know she
Mhm.
trusts, and she knows I will always be honest with her. I will
Mhm.
give her my experience. I will tell her what I think are facts about things, and then I will talk to her about her fears or her concerns or her questions without judgment. A
Absolutely.
big thing that we talked about is sex.
Mhm.
She was really curious about it because it's not talked about in schools and people are not talking about this. And she is 16 and in 2 years will be a quote unquote adult. And if
Mhm.
she has some person in her life that wants to have a sex or o sex with her, how the fuck is she's going to know what's safe, what's not safe, what's not okay? If you feel like this, that's not
Right.
okay. There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that I luckily have experience in when it comes to sex, I get to talk to her about and tell her, like,
Mhm.
something simple, and again, this is all with her consent, is I talk to her about if she wants to have sex and it hurts her that bad, it is okay to say no and how
Absolutely.
to go about saying no and how to feel empowered in that. And these are these really cool opportunities we have as adults in these teenagers' lives to help them navigate this so that they can live a less
Mhm.
traumaful life. And it's not me pushing anything on her. It's just
No.
me giving her the empowerment to be like, listen, this hurts and I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
And this
Right.
has nothing to do with you. I'm
Instead of
just not
just
into it.
laying there and taking it.
And then having trauma behind sex, which we all have, unless you're asexual and you really have no interest in sex, but
Mhm.
everybody's been kind of pushed into this. But we have
Mhm.
no idea. It's not fair to teenagers to not know what an orgasm is. It's
Right.
not fair to teenagers to not know what pleasure is because then they
Mhm.
end up having pain. They have pain and trauma behind sex, and that is not fair.
And guilt and shame.
And guilt and shame.
Afterwards, like, "Oh, I'm a bad person," or "I did something bad," or, like, it's so heavy, and it's so
Yes.
silly, and, I mean, I know I have a lot of, like, that's why you're talking to her because I can't. I get embarrassed. I get, like, I'm already judging myself for my past experiences of, like, when I started having sex, when I all of that stuff. I have a lot of like trauma, shame, and guilt between all of that. And it's embarrassing. And I'm like, am I supposed to talk to her about this? Like, but also the flip side is, I think about this too, is like, if we don't talk to our teenagers about sex, about how it feels, about how it's supposed to be navigated, about how like a boy, a girl is supposed to treat you, about having your own boundaries, even if you are in those like situations, like they're going to find it out by other ways. And the only thing out there that shows you how to have sex is porn. And do you really want your teenager to get their knowledge through porn?
Or from some other person who's had sex once and thinks they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, honestly, it's a disservice. It's a disservice because would you, as a grown adult, I want you all to ask yourselves this for my adults that are listening, would you, as a grown adult, want somebody to berate you or shame you for the things you're into, even if it's as simple as missionary? Even if it's something
Absolutely.
simple, what they call quote unquote vanilla, because that's gotten a bad rap too in the sex community, and I'm not okay with it.
Mm-mm.
There's a
I like,
lot of things that are so toxic,
well, because we make them so toxic and so shameful, and
so shameful.
it's it's so sad because like, it'll be very interesting in 50 years from now where we're at with all this, because I know it's going towards that way, and I know like, where things are going to be open and honest, and like our fears are getting the best of us right now, where we think, because this is what I have to hang on to, is like, if I tell her sex is okay, she's going to end up pregnant, right?
Right.
Or which we're also doing a disservice at, because like, when you want to get pregnant, why do you think all this infertility stuff is? Because we've put spells on our kids about not being pregnant, and then they've got that program running in their head that pregnancy is bad. And if we all believe in the placebo effect, which is scientifically proven, you put that spell in there a long time ago.
Well, and then also with the pregnancy thing, especially teen pregnancies, it's because your kids don't trust to talk to you about sex, man. You've created this environment where it's a
Hmm.
don't talk, don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. And so, guess what? You
Absolutely.
created that. They're not going to talk to you about it. They're not going to ask you to get on birth control. They're not going to trust that you're not going to get mad at them for wanting to have sex because they're
Hmm.
not, quote unquote, an adult. I mean, it's
Right.
just the reality of the fact that there's trust, there's a lack of trust there.
There's a lack of trust and there's fear.
And
And
fear, so much fear.
those are two things that are running this whole subject. It's
Yeah,
trust and fear.
trust and fear. There's another big topic I want to bring up.
Oh God.
And we're going to talk about this person like their name is Grace. Okay? And we're going to say Grace is 14. Grace falls in love with a kid at school. And everybody that is in her adult life is invalidating her love for this person because it's puppy love. You're 14. You don't know what love is. How
Hmm.
could you know what love is? So what? You broke up. You don't know what heartbreak is. You're 14.
Hmm.
This is one of my most frustrating topics to deal with, again, as a third party grown woman, because that is not empathetic. You are not acknowledging their frustrations or how they feel. And you're
Mm-mm.
not realizing that love is love and heartbreak is heartbreak. And it is harder to navigate for somebody who is young and is experiencing this for the first time. And while they're still developing and not even really knowing themselves fully, to figure that out.
Well, it's hard for a grown adult to go through a breakup.
Fuck yeah, dude. And just because you're a grown adult and they're young doesn't mean that they're not experiencing it.
Mm-mm.
Sure, they might
Shit.
not have some of the traumas behind it that you have.
You've not yet, but here
Not
we
yet.
go. We're just gonna give it to him.
Exactly. Puppy love is the dumbest terminology I've ever heard, and it's extremely invalidating to your teenagers.
Absolutely. Just because they're not grown up doesn't make it any less serious.
Any less serious.
Their whole world is their whole world, whether you think it has importance or not. And actually, if you don't think it has importance, it's their whole world. When they come
Yes.
home and tell you that Johnny and Becky were talking about this thing and they're trying to communicate to you what happened in their world, and you invalidate their world because what? Because they're not making money at it? Because it's not their job, they're not an adult, it's not that serious?
Because they didn't go through the traumas you went through in your breakup, so their breakup must not be as important as yours or as painful as yours. So how could they know?
Great.
Grace comes home at 14 and tells you her boyfriend broke up with her, and that is her whole world. She's going through heartbreak, and having you as an adult in her life, regardless of how you are in her life, who you are to that person, telling them that, well, it's just puppy love. You're 14. You'll be okay. It's not going to be your first heartbreak. Shitty. That is shitty
Mhm.
behavior. That is not
Mhm.
heathenistic behavior. That's shitty person behavior. I can't stand it. It
Absolutely.
makes me so heated.
We have to start looking at teenagers like people.
Yep.
They're people. Stop looking at what the subject is. Stop looking at where they're at in their lives and treat them like people.
Yep. Yep.
Stop comparing your fucking life to theirs, right? It's the
Yes.
same thing. It's the same thing. It's just a different part.
Mm-hmm.
It's no less important than your day job.
Mm-hmm. Again, this is something that I'm so glad we've talked about so many times today too, because you say this all the time, Nicole. One of the four golden rules, right? Don't take anything personally.
Mhm.
Why do we do this with adults when it comes to adult warfare? But when it comes to teenagers or anybody younger than us, we take everything they say personally.
Mhm. Everything.
Everything. I feel like I hear all the time that parents say they have to walk on eggshells around their teenagers. They're so
Oh
moody and
my
emotional. But
god.
we really need to stop doing that. And we really need to step into their shoes and remember what it was like to go through some of the things that they're going through. And then maybe we didn't go through what they're going through. Maybe we need
Mhm.
to have that open and honest conversation of, hey, are you okay? What's going on?
Mhm.
Do you need to talk? Or like, why are you being like this? And if so, why? Instead of you're doing this and you need to stop, and then it makes it worse. I wonder why. Because would we do that
Mhm.
to an adult? Would you do that to your partner?
Mm-mm.
We give other people and in our lives more respect because of their age than we do to teenagers, and it's really not okay.
No, it's not. And you're just creating a deeper wedge. Like you what do you want for the future of you and your kid, right? What do you want? This is the first part of the rest of your life with your child. And you really have to kind of like build it like, okay, so what do I want when Trinity's 30 and I am 60, what do I want? Like how do I want that relationship to look? Well, I'm building that now,
Yep, yep,
right? And I
yep.
have to, and I'm definitely not perfect. I am learning as I go, by the way. Sit there and I touch something, I'm like, oh, that's hot. How do I what do I do? So I started to ask her stuff because I don't know how to navigate. I've never been a parent before of a teenager.
Right.
Like, and you could read the books and that helps you navigate a little bit more, but like you have to feel this out. And I almost intuitively kind of went like, okay, what did I need as a teenager? Or what did I need as a kid? And I've kind of fall back on that of like, because she is my kid, like, so I kind of fall back on like, this is what I needed as a teenager that I wasn't getting. So then this is what I try to give her,
Mhm.
and whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but it feels better than like trying to do something else. But it also
Yeah.
makes it really hard when I'm not teaching her like other parents per se. If I have a different parenting style, it's hard because I don't have the validation. The only validation I have is what she's doing. And I still get into my head about like, did I do that right? Is that okay? Especially if you had a fight or something like that.
Mhm.
And fights are okay too, right? Like,
Yeah, fighting's not a bad thing.
no, like you have a fight with your partner. We all have arguments and stuff like that where we have to go back and forth to come to a conclusion of some sort.
Yes.
And um it's when you don't have that validation, or if I'm doing something that going against the grain of how society has told me how I'm supposed to be when raising a teenager compared to what I'm dealing with on a one-to-one basis in real life. And that's a big sometimes it's a big difference. But I feel like at this point in my journey, if I can be in touch with myself, be in touch with her, and navigate them the best way possible, um, and just go from there. Because if it feels right, it's got to be right. If it feels wrong, you know, look at it and see, is it you? Is there a trigger being involved? Are you being egocentric? Are you taking it personally? These are all things that, like, as a parent, I have to go through to kind of like, and she checks me, sometimes she gives me a look, and I just know I've stepped a boundary, and I don't even have to talk about it because I know. And
Right.
then I go, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I was wrong.
Yeah, we've said it a couple of times. Being parents in general, it's not for the faint of heart, man, especially when you get to
No.
the teenage years.
Mhm.
I feel like the biggest thing too is they need to know that us adults are on their side, regardless of their mood, regardless of their behavior, especially when it's less than pleasant. Okay. They need
Mhm.
to know that there's unconditional love and support there,
Right.
because when doing that, what also could help is as adults, we can ask, am I leading with love if I say this to them?
Mhm.
Am I leading with love for them, or am I leaving out of fear for my inner teenager? I
Right.
don't want them to experience the same thing I did, so I'm going to throw that fear onto them. Or am I
Mhm.
leading with love? And then when you lead with love, most of the times it starts with questioning,
Right.
right? Like you said, I think that's so profound. Well, would you like me to help you or would you like me to listen? I think that's huge. That
Mhm.
is such a form of love. Even they teach you that. Obviously, I've gone through a lot of therapy in life. They teach you that a lot with relationships. Is
Mhm.
what would be in your best interest? So, do you want me to listen or would you like me to actively reply? What do you need right now? It's a
Mhm.
simple question, but it's so loving because then it allows you to love them in the way that they need right now.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
usually
'cause
it's not about you.
no, and that's a lot of things. You gotta remove yourself from a lot of it because it's hard because you do get triggered and you do like, um, because you're trying to, like I said, they're not adults yet. They can't like defend for themselves, but they can. So it's this weird like gray area. But I really do believe that you have to treat them like adults because this is the time when they are supposed to mess up. And I think we forget that because it's like the pre-adult, right? Like the the soft part where you can fall and somebody's going to catch you and somebody's going to be there. So then when you are an adult and you do move out and you do have to make your own mistakes and stuff like that, like you realize that I can always call my mom
Mhm.
or somebody that's been there for me. Or and I know like, oh, I fell when I was 16 and now that I'm 30, this is kind of like the same thing. So now I have this tool to have.
Yeah.
Right. They're supposed to this is the one thing about schools that I've, looked at, is that we're doing a lot of disservice, especially in schools. Now, this is generalization, and this is triggering as well, and I'm sorry. And, okay, again, this is my own opinion too. Like, so with schools, like, I feel like, especially with mental illness right now, I really do think that we're not doing anything about it. And granted, I know it's money and I know it's a lot, and I'm not trying to blame. But we have this thing about mental illness right now that's very trendy. And like we're fine with like the little bit of like, oh, do you want to talk about it? But we don't want to do anything about it. We also don't know how to do anything about it. We're not like trained or like we don't have any tools of our own, right? How am I going to help you if I haven't even worked on my inner teenager, right?
Mhm.
Because you're just triggering everything right in front of me. So then I have to bite back and I have to discipline and strong arm you to do what I want you to do. But what I find is that if a teenager is acting out in school, there's usually a reason why. And they're not going to tell you, they're not going to be vulnerable to you. You know, it's not like they're going to come up to you and go, Miss Cassie, I had a hard time today at home, or I'm having a hard time at home every day. So
Right.
now I'm going to smoke in the bathroom.
Yep. I mean, I'm gonna be really honest, and some of you might not like this, but I think it's happening literally in every school because,
Oh, yeah.
again, I have a big plethora in people, and this is also going to be a controversial statement, so don't sue me. But Ann Arbor has more issues than they'd like to say that they do, and there are kids that sit in my chair and are struggling in these schools and struggling with like this older mindset of discipline and struggling with these like
Punishment. This punishment that we have to deal out. Like, I just,
God, it's
oh.
so toxic. It's this old school way of punishment where it's like,
Hmm.
it's not political. It's none of that. I can't stand when people bring politics into this kind of thing where it's like, no, this is just an old school mindset. This is conditioning that they were taught. So they're passing it on to try to like discipline these kids. It's something that we need to break. It's a generational thought that we need to
Absolutely.
break. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's just been passed down through the grain.
Absolutely. Like, listen, has yelling, has when somebody yelled at you, has it ever changed your mind?
No,
Right.
maybe. Well, I would say that for me, that's probably different, but no, not usually. Just because if you ever yelled at me, usually there's words there that actually do matter and you're yelling for a reason because you're telling me to stop. But, anyways,
All right. That's not.
how about this one? Has being told you're in trouble and then getting sent to a room to sit in the room and miss school, but not being told why ever teached you anything?
Mm-mm,
Why are we
mm-mm.
not talking to these kids and explaining the reasons to why? Why are we not asking more
Absolutely.
questions? We're telling them they're in trouble, but we're not telling them why or asking what their intent was behind the thing. Why were they doing the thing? We're not getting to the root of the problem.
Right. If they're kids, they're kids, they're testing it out. Then why aren't you teaching them why they can't do it? Like, listen, like, okay, so this is why I don't think this is in your best interest. Blah, 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 blah.
See, and that
Right.
goes along with parenting too, though.
Absolutely.
Like, why are you guys not being like, hey, why'd you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Your kid gets caught vaping in the school. Why are you just immediately being like, you're getting this taken away, you're getting this taken away, you're in this trouble, you're in this trouble, you're going to do this, you're going to clean this? Why are we not being like, "Why'd you do that? Why are you vaping?"
Yeah, why is it do you think it's cool? Are you dealing with something? Do you wanna, like, talk about it? I don't
Instead,
know,
we just
like
come to these conclusions that we're shoving onto these kids, and it's usually our own fears.
well, that's the thing, because it's a fear of projection of I'm a bad parent now. Like, so then if my kid's vaping, I'm a horrible parent, and now he'll never, amount to anything in their whole life.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's important before you decide to discipline anywhere, for my teachers listening, for my parents listening, make sure you're clear with yourself as to why you're disciplining. Is it because it's something they have to learn to survive in the world we live in, right? And you need to
Mhm.
explain this to them like, listen, dude, I don't truly have a problem with it, but right now, because of your age, you can't really do it. We're gonna get in trouble, and this is gonna happen, and this is gonna happen. So you gotta have this. Like, this is why, right? Or is it because of something that is within you that you have a qualm or fear about? Is it something
Mhm.
you have to go back and get clear on with yourself?
Right.
Why do you have that? Why,
Right.
like, why do I have this fear that I'm now scared for them to go through?
Mhm.
Because then you can talk about it better. You can be like, listen, I need to tell you this. Like, I went through this as a kid, and this happened, and it could be different for you, but I'm scared that you could go through that. And that kind of vulnerability
Mhm.
with kids is hard because I've had conversations with that, like that with Trinity. Just like helping her navigate waters of what, when, and how to tell her mom things, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
she'll tell me, and then I'm like, "Yo, did you tell your mom? Like, I can't hide things from your mom." She'll be like, "I'm scared." I'm like, then it's that
Yeah.
question of why? And it's the question of, listen, I was scared because my mom wasn't easy to talk to, and my mom would have
Mhm.
done this and this to me. But there's a difference for you in that where your mom's gonna listen to you, babe. And if you get on open and honest with her, it's these conversations that we're not having with kids and the conversations that we're not having
Mhm.
interpersonally to be able to open that door for the kids too.
Absolutely. This is also why it said that it takes a village to
Fuck
raise a kid,
yeah, dude.
right? You gotta have a strong I feel, and I have a strong feminine group around me. I've got you, I've got Jessica, I've got my sister, I've
You
got my
got Chelsea.
mom, I got Chelsea. I got all these people that show her how to be a strong woman in different ways so that she can cherry pick what she needs in her life, in her basket, so that she can be the best person she can be. I know, and you've seen me do this, I know when I have to get the fuck out because I'm not making the situation better.
Yeah, and it's really funny.
Right, I'm like, "I gotta go," because
And then you run.
I right, I gotta
Sometimes you don't even
go,
say anything else. You're like, "I gotta go." And then
I
you
gotta
just
go,
go.
I gotta go. Well, because I could see if I say one more thing, just my presence is going to escalate it to a place where I can't go back from, right?
Mhm.
And she's gonna shut down, and then nothing's gonna happen.
Which is then gonna trigger you
Right.
also.
So, if I remove myself from the situation, either calm down, re-center myself, or like a lot of times I've asked you, I'm like, listen, you know, talk to her for a minute. I'm gonna leave just to like, because I'm not, whatever I'm saying is not getting the effect I want,
Yeah.
right? Because it is easy to get mad at me because I am going to be there. I
You're the
am
mother.
going right. That's just a normal thing, I feel like.
Yes.
And it's, if they're trying to express stuff, I'm the easy one to express that anger to. But I feel like a lot of times it'll get too much and then it shuts down, right?
Yeah.
And if I don't necessarily want it to shut down or I'm trying to make her move through it, I need to remove myself.
And then, like, I feel like what's a good practice, and this is with anybody, you guys, but we forget this with teenagers, is to start asking yourself, she mad at me? Well, no, I didn't do anything. So
Mhm.
what's she mad at? I wonder what she's mad at. I wonder what happened. Instead of immediately jumping to these decisions and these conclusions of, she's mad at me for something. I don't know what, but something. So I'm going to put her in her place because she's younger than me.
Right.
It's it's hard to have patience, man, but being patient can go a long ways. Because along with that comes being supportive and then loving, and you're allowing this space for them to, like, think about it like a bubble around them, and sometimes it's black, sometimes it's red, sometimes it's green. It's their aura, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
it's pulsating out and it's flowing everywhere. And sometimes it's super tight and close around them. But you are creating a space for when it's super tight around them to kind of relax a little bit. And then when it's pulsating and throwing itself around, you're a catch-all to be like, "Hey, let's, like, bring that back in, buddy. Let's help you.
Let's just a little bit.
Just a little bit. We'll help you a little bit."
Yeah. And just asking questions to them a lot of times, be like, "So do you think that was the right thing to do?" And
Yeah.
navigating, having a conversation about it instead of telling them what to do. Telling them is past at this point. Do you know what I mean? Like, they listen to you when they're young and in the elementary stage because you're everything to them.
Right.
But teenagers, you have to negotiate, right? You
Yes.
have to have a conversation. Like, this is why I think this is the best for you. If you still feel strongly about it, then let me know and we'll try to navigate something else. Like in the morning, I try to be very much, um, I don't want to like upset her in the morning, right? I don't want her to go to school already upset, right?
Mhm.
So I made it my personal mission, no matter what. And this is a hard one for me because I want to do everything right by the books
Yeah.
sometimes. But I'm also afraid of like the authority of school, right? Like it intimidates me. I don't like it because they have different mindsets than I do. And they, for some reason, have the authority because they're school, right? Principals, superintendents, all those people. And yeah, we've got in trouble. And I'm okay with it. Do you know what I mean? So, like,
Yeah.
because I set my boundary as I don't want to upset her at school or before school. So sometimes we're late to school and we get tardied for that first class. And I have learned that it's not my fault. I'm not a bad parent because we're late. I'm not, like it doesn't, and of course it doesn't, it doesn't matter if I get her up at 6 in the morning or, 5 in the morning. Like it doesn't matter if she has 3 hours or an hour to get ready for school. We're still gonna like,
Yeah, that baby, if she ever gets a job, she's gonna need to work third shift.
absolutely, which is fine, right? Like,
Yeah, she's better at night, man. She's not a morning person.
no, and we know that teenagers are supposed to sleep more anyway, right? Like
Well,
this is
girls in general, women are.
so we're already not giving them the best that they can be in a physical sort of way because we're trying to form them into being what society wants them to fit in. We're trying to make them really good cubicle workers is what we're trying to do, right? Like get up at 8, be there at 9, get off at 5. Like this is what your life is going to be for the next 50 years. We need you to be really good cubicle workers. Well, that's not what I'm raising.
No,
So,
that's not what most people are raising anymore.
right. So I'm just not going like, okay, if you want to discipline her by whatever means necessary, well, you know what I mean. By whatever you have deemed is a proper punishment for being late in the morning, so be it. You know what I mean? Like, we've accepted the fact that this is our way of life and it's against your rules. So we will accept the punishment however you see fit.
Yeah.
Because to me, it's more important not fighting with my child. and upsetting the emotional balance of what I'm trying to create in her.
Right. Yeah. I think that's important too, though, because like making you in tune with her. It's
Mhm.
making her trust you and feel safe, and she can tell you when she's not having a good emotional day, good mental
Abs
health day.
Mhm.
And mental health days are important. And speaking on that, I think it's really important for us to listen to kids and young people when they say they need mental help and to not berate
Mhm.
them or make them feel dumb because they think they might have something. Well, you don't have ADHD. That's just this. Everybody's talking
Right.
about it, so that's why you think you have it. Dude, just
Mhm.
listen to them. Why do you think you have it? Like, maybe we should get you checked out just to make you feel better. Like, let's go to
Well,
therapy.
right, what bad would it do?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and then take yourself out of it. It is not a reflection on your parenting
Yes.
if they have ADHD. If they're if whatever they've choose to be, it's their choice. It's not a
Mhm.
reflection on you. They're not doing it to you.
You're just support, man.
You're a
How can you best
guide.
support them?
You're a guide. You're trying to get them to be, adults, right? And
Exactly.
I hope happy adults, right? Like I
Yeah, and if
hope you love your life, right?
hell yeah, and if your teenager's coming up to you saying, "I need help with this right now, and I think I need therapy," why wouldn't you wanna give that to them young so then they could potentially be better when they have to try to do all this on their own?
Right, right. Like I just feel like we have to get our pride out of the way and we really have to start looking at ourselves as parents about, well, how are we leading this? Is this in the best interest? Is this in the best interest for me and that's why I'm doing this, or is it the best interest for my child? Now, there are some people that take it to the complete extremes and like overdo things for their child, and it's a toxic, it's almost like if you do so much for your child that once they become an adult, they don't know how to live without you,
Yeah.
which is its own toxicity, right? Like now I have a 30-year-old in my basement that can't leave because I've literally done everything for them.
Yeah.
And that's one too, but that's why it's so hard to navigate this middle path because like, yes, you do have to do this, but you also have to do this. Like sometimes I feel really bad about like I tell Trinity, like, I'm not emailing your teacher, that's your job. I'm not gonna email your boss when you're 25,
Right.
right? Like I'm not gonna be like, hey, Trinity's not gonna come into work today because she's feeling sick.
Right, like, I can give you advice
Right.
on things you could put in there or how to, like, navigate that, but I'm not doing it for you.
No, this is the part, like as they're in this part right now in the 4 years of high school, this is where they're going to learn how to be adults and navigate those waters. So there's going to be it's just like practicing a sport. You are literally practicing how to be an adult every day, right?
Mhm.
So you're doing this, so you're going to mess up or you're not going to be good at it. Right?
Yep.
Because this is a skilled trade. You're practicing. So be soft on them. Be like helpful and navigate these waters. And if you have to talk to somebody else, talk to somebody that read a book, do some research on how to talk to your teen and go with what feels right with you. Don't just like, what your flavor of teaching another human being is and go with your gut and what sounds right to you.
And what I'll add to that is forgive yourself,
Mhm.
forgive your inner teenager. Remember that you're gonna fuck them up. Remember that
Mhm.
they're gonna fuck themselves up.
Mhm.
Not everything is about you, baby.
Yeah, you're not responsible for all of it. You gotta give yourself
No.
some grace. Like, listen, I get
Yes.
it. It's hard. And, it's hard to be human and it's hard to be an adult and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes you just gotta take a break and like breathe a little bit.
Yeah, because not only did our parents do the best that they could with what they have, you as a parent are doing the best that you can with what you have. And if you are actively doing this research and doing this healing work, you're doing more than some parents.
Absolutely, right? Like, we're just trying to get through this without, like, I don't know. I don't even know. We're just trying to have an experience, and we're trying to evolve in the better so the whole of the species becomes better people in the long run. And that's what we're doing. And it's
Yeah,
going to
man.
look dark sometimes, you know?
Yeah. Well, and for my teenager babes listening, I just want you guys to know one, you're not alone. If this has not given you that feeling, I want to make it very
Mhm.
clear you're not alone.
You're
We've
not alone.
all been through what you are going through right now. Maybe not specifically in that way, but we've had teenage heartbreaks, we've had hardships. We understand that you are in a pressure cooker. And some of
Mhm.
us forget, okay? Some of us just have some adult things that are going on in life that makes you forget your teenage triggers, that forget how stressful it was. And
Mhm.
until we see you going through it, it's hard to remember it. So you're not alone, never
You're t
alone.
and this isn't gonna last forever,
It's
you know,
not
and
going to last
I
forever.
know that it feels that way. I know it's your whole world.
Yes.
It's not gonna last forever. You're gonna make it through it. Even
Mhm.
if it's hard, even if you're lonely, even if you're depressed. I get it. I really
Yep.
do. I've been through all of it, right? You've been through all of it.
Mhm.
And it doesn't last forever, you
Also,
know?
babes, I think it's going to be important that you find someone that you can trust to talk to. Now, whether that's a mentor or somebody in a spiritual community or a friend of your parents or your parent,
Mhm.
I think it's important to find somebody to talk to and start having those hard conversations and stick up for yourself. Self
Mhm.
advocating is something that you have to learn when you're young because when you guys learn it while you're young still, you will it'll just really be a great service for you when you get older. So if there's
Mhm.
something in your life that you're really going through that's really hard and it's going to be a hard conversation for you to have with somebody, I think it's important to try to figure it out. You could read books, you can look on TikTok, you can look on
Mhm.
YouTube on how to have hard conversations or how to set boundaries with family or all these things. How do I tell my mom that I'm having this hard thing going through my life? You know, there's a lot of
Mhm.
resources out there, and I think it's important to have those people to talk to because that'll also help you if you are feeling alone.
Mhm. Because you too have to do some work as well. I mean, you
Yeah,
are doing the work. You're trying to grow up, you're trying to like navigate school, you're trying to get good grades, you're trying to do the best at the sports that you're at or whatever club that you're involved
or
in. You're
friendships, relationships,
absolutely
social media.
social
Ugh,
media,
so stressful.
what you're wearing, what you're eating, what
Yeah,
like
what your body looks like, baby, you don't need to worry
uh
about that right now.
right. Mhm.
It's a lot, and
It's
we
a
see
lot.
you, and we understand you, and we know you can feel alone in it, but you're not alone in it because I will tell you as an adult, some of those things you are experiencing as a kid or as a younger person, we're still experiencing as adults too.
Oh,
This gets easier to try
absolutely.
to deal with because we get to learn more.
Mhm. No, I think that's perfectly put. But yes, if you have to reach out to us, we're on all
Oh,
the
yeah,
socials, Facebook. I would be more than happy to talk to you. Cassie would be more than happy to talk to you. Whatever you need.
absolutely. Absolutely. I always put our Instagram, our TikTok, our YouTube, on our videos under the information like for each video. So yeah, absolutely. Reach out to us. We'll always try to help you.
Mhm.
Um, we'll do the best with what we can do, you know. We're not going to tell you
Absolutely.
verbatim how to do everything because we never do
Mhm.
that for anything. But we can offer up advice
Yeah.
on how to navigate these waters. It's hard. It's hard for all of us involved in these situations, and it's a big time change. It's a big body change, emotional change. You're going through a big spiritual change,
There's
and
hormones too. The hormones, like
heck yeah,
being pregnant really made me feel like I understood what it was like to be a teenager at that point, and nobody talks about that either. The hormones. When I was pregnant, I was like, "I am crazy." Rob would say one thing. He'd be like, I'd be like, "Do you like this comforter?" And he'd be like, "No." And I would be like, "Okay." Like, and I would go cry in the shower. So, like, understanding that as an adult, I realized how it was when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
But nobody talks about, hey, you're going to be a little emotional because you're on your period right now because you got a huge source of hormones rushing through you that's going to make you emotional, by the way.
Yeah, we don't
Right.
talk about these things with kids.
Mm-mm. And we act that we expect them to be normal. And it's like, wait, like, okay, give them a little bit of a grace period, please.
Right. It's important again. We all love each other. We forgive each other. We have patience with each other. We have open, honest, non cryptid communication with each other.
Respect for both the parent and the child,
Yes.
and again, this will take practice. It's
And time.
hard and time.
Yeah.
It'll get more normal and more used to it. You've got this though. You got this. I love people and the way they grow. And I think we don't give ourselves enough credit that, like, I don't need a trophy for it, but like it's so beautiful to see somebody get that aha moment. Or like, the other day I saw somebody that like I've known since he was 4, and now it's his first year. He finished his first year in college. And it's so beautiful to see that like growth in a child where they come to adulthood finally and like are doing things like finishing up college and stuff like that, or getting their first love and now they're getting married, and then or like having kids, like our friend that just had babies, like it's so beautiful to see this like reproductive evolution of the human race at real time. And
Hmm.
I just want to appreciate it and love it, and like you're not alone and you are loved and you're here for a reason.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
Thanks.
Are you guys sick of us yelling at you guys yet?
Yeah.
Heal yourselves.
Heal yourselves. Stop treating those teenagers like that.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Oh, go and have fun. Go do something kid like. Go, do some shit.
Fucking watch a Disney movie, man.
Oh my God. So great. I
That
loved it.
shit'll get you right back into your childhood.
Absolutely. Go play kickball.
Fucking color in a coloring book, man. That's
Go paint.
you'll be like, I'm so good at coloring. Because you probably haven't colored since you were a kid, and then you're coloring within all the lines, and your color work's amazing, and you understand colors and how they look together.
Mm-hmm. What else? Go play in the sprinkler. Remember that shit?
Whoa, God.
Right?
Like a slip and slide.
Oh my God, a slip and slide.
I saw on Amazon yesterday because I've been sick for the past couple days, and so I've been home. So I've had so many things to do, but like also not been able to do many because I've been sick. So I've been on my phone a lot. And Instagram sent me an ad for a ramen themed kid pool.
Oh my God, that's so awesome.
And I was like, I told Jordan, I was like, I'm getting a kiddie pool. He's like, you're not getting that ramen kiddie pool. I was like, I 100% am. And I'm going to sit my ass outside when it's nice in it. And I'm going to be happy as can be in my little kiddie ramen style pool.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
Because loafing in some water in a like little like kiddie pool like that is something that I would be very happy doing, especially my inner
Uh-huh.
child, my inner teen. I used to love doing that.
There you go.
So, get yourself a Robin style kiddie pool.
Kid, yes, yes. I don't know. Go toilet paper somebody's house. No, don't do that. I
Oh
mean,
god.
maybe you should, but I don't know.
I did it once.
Did you? I've never done it. I was
And
such a good kid.
oh man, Michael and I got away and everybody else got caught and the cops made them clean up the house. And they were
Oh.
calling us and they were like, "Where are you guys at?" We were like, "What are you talking about?" Michael and I were really bad kids. It's probably why we've been friends for so long is because we got to see the best and worst of each other. And we did some really bad things together.
Not only that, you have to be friends. They know the secrets.
Yeah, we know too much about each other.
You know where the bodies are buried. You
Yeah, it's
have to
like
be
one of those things.
friends.
You don't want
Yeah.
to be my friend, you need to die then.
Right, exactly.
He'd probably say the same thing.
Oh, he would have. Oh, for
Yep.
sure.
He's
Hmm.
also a Capricorn, 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 Capricorn. It's like 4 or 5 planets. Maybe it's 6, I think, in Capricorn.
Oh my God.
He's a true Capricorn.
Yeah. It's funny because like my Capricorn is softened by my Libra.
Yeah, it is.
And I don't realize that until I'm around him.
Oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, because like people think you're a true Capricorn, and they're like, "Oof," and I'm like, "Ha ha ha ha! You haven't met a true Capricorn yet."
No, you haven't.
Because
Here comes Michael.
here comes Michael, and good luck.
I gotta go.
Oh, I love that kid. But yeah,
Yes,
you
I do
you also
too.
have a Taurus Venus, right? Or is it your moon?
No, I have a Taurus moon and Aquarius Venus.
Oh, that's right.
Tren has a Taurus Venus.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
A little Aries baby.
Little Aries baby that likes to cook when she loves you.
Yeah. Listen,
Hmm.
hug your teenagers today, okay? Tell them you love
Yeah,
them.
hug them, love them.
Tell them you
Even
love them no matter what.
absolutely, even if they're in no matter what mood they're at. Although
Mm-hmm.
ask for permission first.
Otherwise, you might get a little bite.
That's right. You gotta make sure it's okay, respect their boundaries. I don't know, like I said, hug your inner teenager, right?
Yeah,
Tell
dude,
her tell her it's okay. Tell her she's not a bad girl. Tell her or,
love yourself.
a bad boy. Like tell
Yes.
them, right? They're accepted in the world that they are in.
Heck yeah, man.
Because we all feel like filthy little trolls.
Filthy little heathens.
Filthy
Yeah, filthy heathens.
heathens.
Okay, peeps.
I think we've beaten that one to death. Well, I mean, I know we could probably talk about it forever,
Oh,
but
listen, we could go on. We've been waiting on this one, you guys, because it is really
yeah.
frustrating watching some of the world treat and talk to people the way that they do. And Nicole and I felt very passionate about this one. We even moved
Hmm.
this one up in the schedule for you guys because we thought this was really important because we also see a lot of other people, though, that feel our feelings too when it comes to this. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
we really wanted to get this out because we feel like people are not talking about it enough.
No, we're tiptoeing around a lot of issues with this, and especially in schools. And, we make up excuses like, well, that's why it's always run, or we don't have enough money or resources, or the teachers are stressed out. Listen, I get it. But
Yeah.
if the kids are the most important thing that we're trying to do and keep them happy, healthy, and alive, then none of this matters. None of the money, the stress, like you don't, you're overworked, underpaid, all that stuff. Like none of that matters because what it's for is for the kids.
Yeah, you don't get into being a teacher to make $1 million, dude.
No, you get it. What you're doing is way more precious than money because think about it. You remember that one teacher.
That one teacher, man. We all
You're
have
like,
one.
you're like, oh, that teacher changed my life.
My life.
That's what you're doing it for.
Yeah.
You're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for um, those kind of benefits. You're doing it to change a person's life,
Shout
and
out
that's
to Mrs.
huge.
Ortega. That was the one woman when I came back from this whole journey I was telling you guys about that opened me up. She
Mm,
cracked it. She cracked my shell.
mhm,
She was kind of rough about it for a minute, and I kind of hated her at first, and then I ended up loving the hell out of her. I would go and I would sit with her during her like break hour, and that was my person in school. She was the one person that I could tell things to, and she never judged me. We all have
right.
that teacher.
Yeah,
You guys might be that
exactly.
teacher.
Yeah, you guys might be that teacher.
Keep that in mind. You're going to be that teacher that kid sees you 20 years down the road and they will never forget you. They're like, Miss
Mm-mm.
Shook? Oh my God. You are my
Right.
favorite teacher. You changed my life.
You changed my life.
My life.
It's and I get it. But like if we can change the schools, and it's only going to happen if the community yells loud enough. If we could change the schools to best suit the teenagers that we're doing or that we're forming, because I just feel like we're doing a disservice to these kids at this point because we can see it unthreading just a little bit. All these kids that have anxiety that won't go to school, all these kids that aren't being their needs aren't being met because they don't fit in the society that we have. Like even the ones that are secretive and are faking their entire existence because they can't speak up, these are the things that we're missing out on, and when we miss out on those things is when bad things happen,
Yep.
and that's what we're trying to that's the whole point of this.
Here, here,
The whole point.
here, here.
I'm just trying to change the whole world. It's fine.
No, that's the mission, man.
Right, right. All right. I
Okay,
love
we
you.
have to digress. I love
That's
you
right.
guys. Happy Heathen Day.
Happy
Thursdays are
Heathen
Heathen
Day.
Days. We'll see you guys in the next one.